Hello, and welcome to another episode of Easing the Badger, a Wheel of Time first time reader podcast. I'm Will,
I'm Alex.
I am Flynn.
and today we are doing chapters 12, 13, and 14 of The Eye of the World.
I can't count because as you were saying that, I went in my head, I was going 12, 13, and 11.
No, not quite.
That's how numbers work.
Not quite.
Just so you know where I'm at for the rest of this recording. At least you guys get to deal with me and not mine. It's probably a little bit of a reprieve for him.
Oh, we've got some
Long
beefy
shift.
chapters.
Yeah,
So
our last reading was pretty light, all things considered. Not so
This was punishment for us being so happy last time.
I mean, I still had my big monologue last time.
But you had one of the best chapters in the entire series last time, so shut the fuck up.
Alright, well, last we left off, the gang had just arrived in Terran Ferry. So, now we're at Chapter 12, Across the Terran. The icon for this chapter is a symbol known as the Flame of Tar-Valon, which is like the white half of a yin-yang with some squiggly magically looking things around it. And this symbol generally indicates that the chapter has to do with Aes Sedai.
Those just look like suns.
That's what I thought. I guess, I grew up in the 90s, and my mother was a big fan of sun decorations.
Even instinctively to me, they just look like suns. So squiggly magic thing sounds dumb to me. I'm just saying.
I don't know. I'm also not looking at the icon right now. I was
True.
pulling that from memory. So, Lan tells the gang to follow him, and they really have to trust he knows where he's going, because can nobody see shit in this fog? The town is super quiet, with only a few lights and a few windows, with no one out and about but them. Rand leads his horse, Cloud, and is relieved to have a break from riding, because his ass is as sore as a twink at Folsom. He also overhears Moiraine telling Lan that he has to handle things because she doesn't want to stick out too much in the ferryman's memory. Rand, Matt, Perrin, and even Tom are grumbling the whole way about how much this sucks, but Egwene is marching along with poise and determination, although Rand can totally clock that she's also sore from riding. He's ruminating on how she must be pleased as punch to be getting the adventure she wanted, and how things must look very different for her having chosen to come along, while the rest of them were thrust into this unwillingly. Suddenly, Rand bumped into Lan's horse and realized everyone had stopped. They were at the landing that leads to the ferry, and he thinks about how the Terran is supposed to be bigger than any body of water he had ever seen, but he couldn't even see it because of the fog and the dark of night. Before they move any further, Lan gets their attention and reaches over to Perrin to pull his cloak aside, exposing his axe. Rand gets the idea, and exposes his sword as well, just in time for a group of men to appear out of the fog carrying lanterns. Lan took up a seemingly casual pose, but with his hand on his sword he seemed like he was ready to spring into action if provoked. Rand tried to copy the pose as best he could, but didn't feel so confident that he was pulling it off. Perrin fiddled with his axe, and Matt laid his hand on his quiver. Then Tom gives a flourish and produces a knife from his sleeve, catching the whirling blade in his palm and casually beginning to trim his fingernails with it. To the delight of Egwene and, although subtly, Moiraine. Master Hightower just stares for a moment before saying, "Right, y'all are gonna pay me the rest when we cross, right? I've already hidden your down payment, so you can't steal it back from me." Lan says, "You'll get the rest when we reach the opposite shore." And Hightower says, "Alright, well, let's get moving then." The ferry's a wide barge with raised sides and two thick ropes on either side that go from shore to shore. They load all the horses on and corral them in the center, and everyone else climbs aboard as well. While they're loading up, Hightower is yelling at his men and being a bossy asshole, but keeps randomly cutting off to stare off into the fog. He's clearly unnerved by something, and once everyone is aboard, he stares off into the fog for several seconds before one of his men touches his arm to snap him out of his trance. And he's like, well, what are you waiting for? Let's shove off. As they made their way across the dark river in the thick fog, Rand eventually went up to Lan and whispered, "Do you really think they would have robbed us? It seems more like they were afraid we would rob them." Lan said, "With the fog to hide them? Well, when what they do is hidden, men sometimes deal with strangers in ways they wouldn't if there were other eyes to see. And the quickest to harm a stranger are the soonest to think a stranger will harm them. This fellow, I believe he might sell his mother to Trollocs for stew meat if the price was right. I'm a little surprised you ask. I heard the way people in Emmonsfield speak of those from Terran Ferry." Rand is like, "I mean, yeah, people say that, but I never thought... What if he tells the Fade we crossed on the ferry? Maybe he'll bring the Trollocs over after us." Lan chuckles dryly and said, "Robbing a stranger is one thing. Dealing with a half-man is something else again. You really think this guy is brave enough to carry Trollocs on this thing, especially in this fog, no matter how much gold he was offered? Or even talking to a Murdral if he had any choice? Just the thought of it would keep him running for a month. I don't think we have to worry very much about Dark Friends in Terran Ferry. Not here. We are safe, for a time at least. From this lot, anyway. Watch yourself, and let's keep quiet about this. Too much talk of Trollocs and such can bring even more trouble." And soon enough they arrived at the other side of the river. Matt and Perrin exclaimed that the river wasn't half as wide as they had heard, while everyone disembarked and led their horses. Hightower called after them, "Bitch, where's my money?" And Moiraine's like, "You'll get your damn coin and a tip for your men," she said, making sure they could hear her. At that, the men perked up and began following Moiraine, despite Hightower's seeming trepidation. At the end of the landing, Lan handed out coins while the other travelers waited in a group. Moiraine, however, was off to the side alone, staring at the river. All of a sudden, there was a loud crack and the ferry began to dislodge from the landing. Hightower rallied the men, but there was nothing they could do about it as the ferry began to spin on the river faster and faster until it broke apart. One of the men just said, "Whirlpool." Hightower sputtered, "Whirlpool? There's never been a whirlpool on the Terran. That's impossible." Moiraine just said, "An unfortunate occurrence," in a hollow tone, and walked away from the river. Lan says, "Damn, sucks about your boat. Oh well, guess that means no one else can come across. Here, have some more coin. That should repay the damages." Hightower just stares at Lan for a moment, then snatches the coin and runs away screaming, followed by his men. "All right, let's bounce," says Moiraine. Rand stood staring at the river for a second in bewilderment. He thinks, dude says whirlpools never happen here, but like, could it have been a coincidence? But after a moment, he realizes he's been left behind and runs up the bank to catch up with the others. Only a couple of steps up the bank, though, and he abruptly left the fog, and suddenly it was crystal clear night. Looking behind him, the fog really did just end in a straight line parallel to the river, as though it were a wall. Moiraine is patting herself on the back, saying, "It follows the river as if drawn with a pen. I doubt there are 10 women in Tarvalon that could pull that off." Tom says, "Pardon me, Aes Sedai, but wouldn't we have benefited from more cover all the way to Baerlon at least?" "Drekar are not very smart, Master Marilyn," the Aes Sedai said dryly. "Fearsome and deadly dangerous, and with sharp eyes, but little intelligence. It will tell the Murdral that this side of the river is clear, but the river itself is cloaked for miles in both directions. The Murdral will know the extra effort that cost me. He will have to consider that we may be escaping down the river, and that will slow him. He will have to divide his efforts. The fog should hold long enough that he will never be sure that we did not travel at least part way by boat. I could have extended the fog a little way toward Baerlon instead, but then the Dreadcar could search the river in a matter of hours, and the Murdral would know exactly where we are headed." Tom made a puffing sound and shook his head. "I apologize, Aes Sedai. I hope I did not offend." Aes Sedai, Matt stopped to swallow audibly. The fairy, did you... I mean, I don't understand why... He trailed off weakly, and there was a silence so deep that the loudest sound Rand heard was his own breathing. Finally, Moiraine spoke, and her voice filled the empty silence with sharpness. And this is one of my favorite lines ever. You all want explanations, but if I explained my every action to you, I would have no time for anything else. In the moonlight, the Aes Sedai seemed taller somehow, almost looming over them. Know this. I intend to see you safely in Tar Valon. That is the one thing you need to know. Lan says, if we keep standing around, the Dreadcar will surely spot us. The group followed him, and Perrin asked if they could stop for rest, and there was agreement all around. Moiraine says, well then we should probably go see what Lan is looking for, huh? Turns out Lan had prepared a secret hidey hole under a mound of grass for just such an occasion, and even left some firewood behind. Moiraine asks him to tend to the horses while she goes and has a conversation with Egwene, and the boys come and help. They're struggling to get their feed bags on them, though, and notice that they don't seem to be very tired for some reason. Lan explains that they would keep on running until they drop dead from exhaustion that they never felt after what Moiraine did to them with the power. Matt's like, is that what she meant about seeing to our tiredness? And the thought of that gives Rand the ick. Despite how well she healed Tam, he didn't want her using the power on him. Light, she as much as admitted to sinking the ferry, he thinks. Out of nowhere, they hear the drag car screech again. It sounded like it was coming closer, until it began to fade away into the distance. Everyone lets out a sigh of relief, and Lan seems to think the plan is working, and that the Shadow Spawn is searching the river for them. He says they ought to get inside and eat something and go to sleep. Rand is the first to crawl into the hidey hole, all 6'6" of him, on hands and knees into this little underbrush tunnel. It opened into an odd space that seemed to be like a cave made out of trees that was big enough to hold them all, but with a ceiling of branches and trunks that was low enough only the women could stand upright. He realized as he was about to enter that he was overhearing Moiraine talk to Egwene. The one power, Moiraine was saying, comes from the true source, the driving force of creation. The force the Creator made to turn the wheel of time. She put her hands together in front of her and pushed them against each other. Saidin, the male half of the true source, and Saidar, the female half, work against each other and at the same time together to provide that force. Saidin, she lifted one hand then let it drop, is fouled by the touch of the Dark One, like water with a thin slick of rancid oil floating on top. The water is still pure, but it cannot be touched without touching the foulness. Only Saidar is still safe to be used. And no, the true source cannot be used up any more than the river can be used up by the wheel of a mill. The source is the river, the Aes Sedai the water wheel. And you really think I can learn? Egwene asked. Her face shone with eagerness. Rand had never seen her look so beautiful, or so far away from him. I can become an Aes Sedai? Rand jumped at that and nearly cracked his head on the roof, but Tom stopped him, saying, Don't be stupid, boy. It's beyond you now. Child, Moiraine said gently, only a very few can learn to touch the true source and use the one power. Some of those can learn to a greater degree, some to a lesser. You are one of the bare handful for whom there is no need to learn. At least, touching the source will come to you whether you want it or not. Without the teaching you can receive in Tar Valon, though, you will never learn to channel it fully, and you may not survive. Men who have the ability to touch Saidin born in them die, of course, if the Red Aja does not find them and gentle them. Tom grumbled at that, and Rand felt uneasy. Men like that were rare, but deadly. He didn't know much about the Ajas other than they were societies within the White Tower, but he did know it was the purview of the Red Aja to hunt down and gentle men who could channel before they caused another breaking of the world. But some of the women die too. It is hard to learn without a guide. The women we do not find, those who live often become, well, in this part of the world they might become wisdoms of their villages. The Aes Sedai paused thoughtfully. The old blood is strong in Emmonsfield, and the old blood sings. I knew you for what you were the moment I saw you. No Aes Sedai can stand in the presence of a woman who can channel, or who is close to her change, and not feel it. She rummaged in the pouch at her belt and produced a small blue gem on a gold chain that she had earlier worn in her hair. You are very close to your change, your first touching. It will be better if I guide you through it. That way you will avoid the unpleasant effects that come to those who must find their own way. Egwene's eyes widened as she looked at the stone, and she wet her lips repeatedly. Is... does that have the power? Of course not, Moiraine snapped. Things do not have the power, child. Even an Angreal is only a tool. This is just a pretty blue stone, but it can give off light. Here. Egwene's hands trembled as Moiraine laid the stone on her fingertips. She started to pull back, but the Aes Sedai held both her hands in one of hers and gently touched the other to the side of Egwene's head. Look at the stone, the Aes Sedai said softly. It is better this way than fumbling alone. Clear your mind of everything but the stone. Clear your mind and let yourself drift. There is only the stone and emptiness. I will begin it. Drift and let me guide you. No thoughts. Drift. Light bloomed into the stone. Just one flash of blue and then gone. No brighter than a firefly, but he flinched as if it had been blinding. Egwene and Moiraine stared into the stone, faces empty. Another flash came, and another, until the azure light pulsed like the beating of a heart. It's the Aes Sedai, he thought desperately. Moraine's doing it, not Egwene. One last feeble flicker, and the stone was merely a bauble again. Rand held his breath. For a moment, Egwene continued to stare at the small stone, then she looked up at Moiraine. I thought I felt something, but perhaps you're mistaken about me. I'm sorry I wasted your time. I have wasted nothing, child. A small smile of satisfaction flitted across Moraine's lips. That last light was yours alone. It was, Egwene exclaimed, then slid immediately back into glumness. But it was barely there at all. Now you are behaving like a foolish village girl. Most who come to Tarvalon must study for many months before they can even do what you just did. You may go far, perhaps even the Amerlin seat one day, if you study hard and work hard. You mean... With a cry of delight, Egwene threw her arms around the Aes Sedai. Oh, thank you. Rand, did you hear? I'm going to be an Aes Sedai. That is the end of chapter 12.
Dun.
That last line in Rand's head, after she says it, all he hears is dun dun dun.
So we finally learned a bit more about how the power works.
Yes. Thank God. I'm willing to wait. But like, oh my God. The mystery. So mystery. But I am glad to know a little bit more. But it's she was explaining, and she said, so like the force that drives the turning of the wheel of time is conflict. Are you telling me that Maureen is also a Marxist? I I mean I mean I they could never make me hate her. I, what am I supposed to do? what am I supposed to do? She's a historian and a Marxist. That I mean, that's the dialectic. It, I don't know.
We did kind of get our first sort of suspicious thing with Moiraine when she, destroyed this random dude's entire livelihood.
I mean, yeah, but
I think that part's
the,
funny as
the thing,
hell.
yeah, yeah, unfortunate, bitch.
Hey, to be fair, they paid him for it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I was thinking about it.
Considering the amount they paid for the crossing.
I mean, it's you know, something I kept coming back to is that power moves in different ways than people who had never encountered it would think, and people with power they follow different rules, right? Because they can, because they have to, right? When you have that kind of influence, or you have that kind of control, or you have that kind of power to be able to affect things that way, you automatically are operating under a different rule set. And it's she's trying, like, they're being hunted, right? They're being hunted, and he can build another boat. It'll take a long time, and the immediate loss is great, sure. There's only one of them, though. That like it. There's only one Rand. There's only one Matt. There's only one Perrin. There's only one Egwene, right? There's only one of each of them, and you can just build another boat. Do I think it's right? I don't know. I don't especially care. The guy seems kind of like an asshole. So, like, like he was like, I've already hidden your down payment. Okay, girl, what did you think we thought you were gonna do with it?
Like, that whole thing is just full of dubious morals from beginning to end. So,
Yeah, what did you think
and
we
not
thought was
just
gonna
her, but
happen?
like
You're gonna shove it
him
up your ass? I don't
and
like what is
right, like
yeah. So like whatever. I don't especially care about this guy. And if they need to if they need to cover their tracks, and again, it's just the overriding goal is to keep them alive.
right.
Collateral damage in the course of that is inevitable, I think, especially again because of the different rule set that Moiraine operates under. Um, do I like it? Not necessarily, I guess. Do I care? Also, not necessarily. Unfortunate, sure.
What was it she said exactly? An unfortunate occurrence.
A series of unfortunate events.
Gagged. I was
um,
gagged.
well, there's a reason he did not put the coin purse away.
Right. Yeah,
Because he
I was
knew.
gonna say he must have
Right.
known. He must have
He
known,
knew.
especially from the way that Moiraine was just looking at the river. Yeah, like I saw that she was looking at the river, and I was like, she's up to something.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But still, it doesn't necessarily make me mistrust her. You know,
No,
it's
she did what she had to do in the moment. So
yeah. I
I
can
don't know.
see
I
why
don't.
that would
I
be
don't think.
scary, but
I don't think there is a right or wrong in here. I think there would be a wrong if they hadn't paid him for it afterwards. You know, but I believe, in my opinion, the initial bribe and the payment for crossing is more than enough to cover like his day-to-day livelihood and expenses, and probably also a good chunk of rebuilding, and then to be paid for the loss of the boat on top of that. Not paying him, knowing, because they went into this planning to drop that thing into the bottom of the river.
yeah,
Not planning to pay him what it was all worth and stuff, that would have been wrong. So I don't really see anything particularly wrong with what they did, I guess, but I don't see anything wrong with how it was handled, given their situation.
I do fully believe this was entirely premeditated.
Absolutely.
Since, like, Lan had the hidey hole prepared right outside of town.
And earlier on, it was clearly stated they will not be slowing down until after they cross the river.
Yeah, so they had this escape route mapped. They knew what they would have to do to cover their tracks if they had to.
On a slightly less serious topic of this chapter, one of the funniest moments is Rand pretending cool nonchalance like Lan in like burying his sword beforehand.
like yes, I know how to use this. I'm
I just
dangerous.
like it just makes me think of a child playing with a stick and pretending it's a sword, you know? He's just like standing there, he's holding his sword, he's like bouncing kind of maybe.
Meanwhile, he literally has no idea why they're even doing this because of, the questions he asks Lan once they're crossing.
Well, no, he does have an idea of why they're doing it. He just isn't entirely convinced that Lan truly believes.
Like, he's just like, they think we're gonna rob them. And he doesn't understand that, like, sometimes that's the type of people you have to look out for. The
Right.
jumpy ones might react poorly first.
Yeah. Says without anybody to watch them, when there's no
Right.
eyes on them, they might act differently. Which I was like, that's just what the internet is.
Right.
That's what the
Oh
internet is like.
god, yeah.
And
People
Literally.
act insane on the internet because they can.
Mm-hmm.
because of anonymity.
Because no one's gonna punch them in the mouth when they need it.
Right.
Not until the day I can reach through a screen. That's gonna be a whole game changer.
Knuckle sandwich express delivery.
You better get on that before I die. That's a bucket list for me. Punching someone through a screen on the internet before I die. Yeah, no, I get a kick out of that. I find what Lan points out about like the people oftentimes who are like the first who would act that way are also the first to blame others is it's such a core part of like bad behavior. Like we see cheaters do that, accusing their
Yep.
partners of cheating because they are. They're projecting. If I'm gonna
Mhm.
do it, you probably can too, right? And they have a higher opinion of themselves, and if I have a high opinion of myself and I'm cheating, you certainly are. You know what I mean? So
They think that
we see
everybody
that
operates the same way that they do.
exactly. We see that especially with people who aren't on the up and up. So I think it's a really good point, and I think that it is a lesson that Rand needs to learn because we know that he is going out into the world, and he is no longer safe in cozy safe in his happy little Two Rivers paradise.
Then they confront her about the oh, Tom does. Oh yeah, no, they confront her about the ferry, and Matt asks why, and she says, "That is the one thing you need to know, is I intend to see you safely in Tarvalon." And then it's Rand remembers a saying that's it's better to spit in a wolf's eye than to cross an Aes Sedai. Like, did she not just get done showing y'all that she was not the one to fuck with for like
Right.
hours? Let's go. Let's let's go while the
For
going is good.
Moiraine, it is permanent. It is
Like,
permanently today is not the day, and she is not the one. Every day is not the day, and she's never the one. Do not start.
Not the one, not the
Rand
two.
needs to internalize that.
Oh my god!
She's
I
like,
don't think
we
he.
gotta go. Yeah. I don't have time to explain all of this shit to you. All that you need to know is that I'm doing what I have to.
Right. I am keeping you safe.
Mm.
I kind of feel like in a more modern translation, like if a more modern writer would have written that at some point within these first probably 15 chapters, she would have smacked one, if not all three of them upside the head.
Mm-hmm.
And
They would deserve it.
and at least one head bashing from Lan.
Bonk.
And they all would have deserved it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's more Nynaeve's speed.
Well, Matt and Rand would have deserved it. Perrin's a little less like the other two. A little.
Only because he's quieter.
It's true. I don't know. I feel like Perrin can. I feel like he's also more thoughtful. And I'll touch on that with some stuff coming up in chapter 13 about that actually. So
I believe this chapter was our first mention at all of the concept of Ajas.
yes, I think it was. Specifically, we know the Red Aja
Right.
now.
So there is some sort of categorizing of types of Aes Sedai.
They're cliques. Just call them what they are.
Sitting at the lunch tables, the little lunchroom diagram.
Yep. Is this the first naming of the male half of the one power?
The
They
female
haven't
half.
actually named it.
No,
before
I
too.
think they have named Sidene. I think this is the first time they've named Sidar.
Okay, I knew it was a
I
rumor,
had
but
not seen that
okay.
before, so I would have, and I'm pretty sure I would have remembered the first time
Yeah.
I hadn't
If
seen it yet.
anything, I think Sidene was mentioned in the prologue.
Oh, right, right. Yep, you're right. I forgot about that. And then also with that, just to touch on it, since you described it as this, the flame of Tarvalin as the chapter icon, and we can go back, I think, to chapters 5 or 6. Um, the dragon fang is the other half of that yin yang.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So the dragon flame is essentially Sidene, and then
Yeah, that's
the
interesting.
flame.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
Um,
it seems like it the shape, and I had never
will
thought about who the dragon is that the dragon's fang belongs to. You know, it's like
right.
an accusation of evil, but I had never considered what dragon
Why?
they were talking about. I thought it just meant like a dragon, not necessarily
Right.
the dragon.
So I
Yeah.
always, even in my first read through, I obviously associated it with the dragon simply because the dragon is believed to be, evil to some degree, connected with the dark one, right, or connected with dark friends or something like that. It's really weird, by the way, what they believe about the dragon, because it's almost like they believe he is a servant of the dark one, but also fights against him, but he's his own separate evil. It is wild.
Mhm.
And sometimes I need like the Charlie Day string meme
Yeah,
for what they believe.
yeah.
But Will did have to like, because I read this book physically and I wasn't really paying attention to the chapter icon. Will had to explain to me that the two made the yin yang.
Oh,
He just like mentioned it in passing, and I was like, oh, and like I went back and I looked, I'm like, oh yeah. But I think that's a really neat way to.
mhm.
Was there anything else new in this one?
Well, like so we have the female half of the one power named for the first time, and so I'm still, trying to suss out what I can about like how this works schematically and like logistically, you know. So, because like I'm not sure now, is it like is I wrote it, I wrote it down. Uh, yeah, like it only Sidar is still safe to be used, she said. So this means that no male Aes Sedai can exist because they cannot access the safe half. And like
Right.
that, so then is the half of the one power that people can channel, is that accessed according to like bodily reality? Because like I'm wondering, I'm thinking, about like if there were, like a trans person here, you know, how would that work?
Yeah.
How,
I
like what part of it would they access? I don't know.
It has been discussed a lot
I believe
Oh,
it.
by a
I
lot
bet,
of people.
I bet.
Unfortunately, it is extremely bioessentialist.
It seems like it. It seems like it would.
There just isn't really, because again, this was written in 1990
Sure.
by, an old southern white guy. He
Hmm.
hadn't really had to think about the transgender
Hmm.
experience ever. So that isn't really baked into the mythos,
Right.
unfortunately.
I do have a headcanon about it though, because since it's not baked into the mythos, and I've never read the compendium, so I don't know either way. I can claim that since the one power is a very spiritual thing in nature, I believe that whatever you are in spirit is the side you touch. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So that's it for me. That's my headcanon, and until I am disproved otherwise, which I don't fucking want anyone out there to
Yeah.
do, I will find a way to reach the internet and punch you if you try. That's my happy place with that, because I think I have talked about this with Will before. I don't remember. It sounds like such a familiar discussion. Maybe I've just thought about it really hard. I don't.
There is something in the future that raises questions, but we can't touch on that for a very long time. So, for now, our entire understanding is women can touch Sidar, men can touch Sidene, but Sidene is tainted and will drive them insane if they channel it. So, either it causes them to die, or they get hunted down by Aes Sedai and
Gentled.
gentled.
Which is a really pretty way to describe that.
Yeah. Which, did it go into detail about what gentling is?
No.
No.
Okay. We'll leave that.
I think it's in the glossary, but I have not read it.
Okay. We'll leave that for it to be explained further.
Yeah. I will say also that's when Egwene asks if she can become an Aes Sedai, and Rand had never seen her look so beautiful or so far away. That's a fucking bar, actually.
Right?
What an incredible line.
Like she
Absolutely
has
amazing.
she's just discovered her life's purpose.
Yeah.
So she has lit up within,
She's glowing.
but now she's a million miles away from him.
She is
because of
something
it.
completely unrecognizable, completely foreign to him now.
Yep.
Yeah. Because all he
She
has are the
is-
stories. Yeah.
She is no longer the person that everyone in town assumed he would marry.
Yep.
Mm.
He was
Yeah.
practically betrothed to since they were children.
Basically.
Got her whole life ahead of her now. It showed up right here, her whole path forward. And it's not a path that he is interested in walking. So, a bar. Yep.
We can already just get a glimpse that she's ambitious.
She is.
She wants this. She has found
She's either a Scorpio or a Capricorn.
Ooh, that would be a fun game at some point.
Yes, that is a game we have got to play.
Maybe in our little recap episodes at the end of books.
We could do that, play that game for like new characters, or maybe change what we think a character has been in the past.
I was going to say, because do they have birthdays? Do they have a calendar?
No, I don't think we learn
Hang
what
on.
any of their birthdays are.
Hang on, because I have like the official fandom wiki up for a character that you are not going to meet for a very long time. Talk to Will about this, but just give me a minute here. Let me see if I can find something.
We have been able to map what their calendar relates to ours.
We do have like a full date of birth for Rand on here, so I'm assuming we have them for the others.
Well, yeah, and technically, Rand, Matt, and Perrin would probably all be the same sign because they're born within 2 weeks of each other.
Right. So, if you've got the calendar, if there's a calendar that translates it to our calendar, we could actually figure out their signs.
We could also figure out, well, probably not their birth chart, but that would be funny. I'm sure that somebody.
That would be really funny. But I mean, yeah, we couldn't do the birth chart just because I'm assuming their stars and planets are different.
Yeah, and there's no indication of the time of day as of right now, I don't think.
No.
So.
I think,
Well, we know one for one of them.
I was gonna say, I was trying to figure out how to say that.
I don't remember.
We'll save that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I might sit down and do that for shits and giggles and then make you two guess at the end of this book. If I can get... Well, you might have to like link me to the calendar or something, but...
Yeah, I'll be able to find that.
Sure, you'd have better luck doing that than I could. Okay, anyway. Anything else for this chapter?
Just like at the very end when Egwene hugs Moiraine, it occurred to me, is this the first time that we've seen anybody actually touch her? Like in a way that she did not, Moiraine, in a way that she did not initiate, like when she gave them the coins? Is this the first time that anybody has actually, like, just touched her?
I think so.
Probably. I mean,
It
maybe
seems,
Lan has, but I don't remember
like
a
a notable
specific
enough.
instance.
Yeah, even when he asked her to kill his father, I don't think he did.
No.
And not a shake of a hand or anything. It seems like she's untouchable, and I think that's probably on purpose. But then Wayne just kind of like tackles her. Glomp.
Yep. Glomp. Oh my god. So, in the last episode for Flint's chapter, I was talking about one other funny moment that there was in that chapter, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't think of it. I just remembered what it was. Is when all the other horses are freaking out, and Moraine's horse is just like sidestepping away, like ew.
Oh,
yeah.
And I don't think he's named in that chapter, but he is named in like the chapters we're doing today. So I'm just gonna say his name's Aldib, and I love that name. By the way, I think it's really, really pretty. But yeah, the horse is just like,
oh,
ew.
okay.
Like,
anyway,
calm down, ruffians. Anyway, okay, that was the other funny thing I was talking about for the last episode. But yeah,
Side note, mentioning the horses' names, when I played Breath of the Wild initially, all of my horses were named after Wheel of Time horses.
I remember you telling me that.
I should hope so. I mean, it's right there.
Like, I got this beautiful, pure white stallion and named it Aldeeb.
You have to. Because
My first
only
little shaggy brown mare was Bella.
That's hilarious. I love it.
No, it is funny, but the horse was, like, embarrassing.
I'm trying to think of how many horses I can think of that are named in this series.
There are a lot.
There's so many.
A fair number already.
I know there's
Robert
so many.
Jordan was a horse girl.
Literally, though. You know, all the kinds of horses. I mean, I can think of only 5 off the top of my head. And we've met 4 of them. And Will, I'm sure, knows the only other fucking one I can think of. Are you counting?
I've just counted 10 that I can think of.
I was gonna
so
say,
far.
bubblegum in a dish. How many horses can we name? I know it doesn't rhyme, but like that's what my head was saying. Yeah, I knew that there were at least 10 named horses, and I'm sure there's more.
Those are just ones owned or written by the core main characters.
Right. There is that. Anyway. Okay, so my chapter 13, is called Choices, and for the 3rd time in this fucking book so far, we have the icon of Moiraine's staff. We had it in chapter 10, and I think chapter 9?
Yes.
I believe.
Tellings of the Wheel or whatever it is.
Yes, for Will's. No, that doesn't make sense. No,
it was chapter 8, I believe.
Yeah, it was chapter 8. So yeah, so Moiraine's staff, and I looked it up, and pretty much exclusively the staff represents chapters from Moiraine. Okay, so this chapter is called Choices, and it is beefy, but there's so much in this chapter that I did not feel I could accurately summarize and give the right importance to, so there's a lot of quotes. Okay, so as they all go to settle into sleep, and Moiraine goes around to everyone and does for them what she had done for the horses to like give them energy. And Matt and Perrin are like scared, but they take it. Egwene's eager for the experience. Tom tries to fight her off a little bit, and she just lays hands on him. She just grabs his goddamn head. Rand thinks he's sneaky, and he tries to like kind of tuck himself into like a niche or a corner and hope that she just forgets about him, but that don't work. And when she's done, he's really surprised at how good he feels and doesn't think he's gonna be able to sleep because he's like, he felt like he was fully rested. So he's even more surprised when he realizes that he pretty much passed out and then had been woken up by Lan. So Lan wakes them. He keeps them pretty quiet while they're getting ready so that Moiraine can get some extra sleep. And then as they ride away from their hidey hole, Rand makes an observation about how this is the farthest he's ever been from home. And just 2 days ago, Watch Hill had seemed like a faraway place. Perrin insists that they'll be home in a month or 2 with stories to tell, and Matt joins in that the Trollocs can't chase them forever. And here Egwene jumps into their conversation, and she's showing a bit of bravado, and she's like, "Men," Egwene snorted, "you get the adventure you're always prating about, and already you're talking about home." She held her head high, yet Rand noticed a tremor in her voice, now that nothing more was to be seen of the 2 rivers. So even though she's trying to hide it, it's clear that she is also nervous about leaving. So Rand decides to forget about like his current worries and fears and loses himself in a daydream of just simple tasks at home, taking care of the sheep with Tam, dancing on the green for Beltane, things like that. And we get bits and pieces for the rest of this chapter of just parts of their journey. So it takes them a week to get to Baerlon, partly because Lan insists that they just keep a very steady walking pace. He complains about the pace, but he's the one who is setting it for the rest of the party. And accepting himself, who often rides ahead and even behind to scout, going back and forth, anyone, including Moiraine, gets chewed out for going any faster than a walk. He has them avoid all habitation. And that's because they don't want their presence, like, noted or noticed by absolutely anyone. And on that first day after they leave that hidey hole, when they finally do see a farm, Matt and Perrin kind of get into a back and forth about how it is or isn't different from home. And Perrin just insists, he's like, it's no different. And Matt says it has to be because we're north of the Tarn. Tarrant. Thank you. I don't know why I suddenly couldn't say the word. But because they're north of the Tarrant. So they go back and forth a little bit arguing about this, and Lan finally shuts them up. Rand thinks personally to himself how Perrin was right. Like, from far away, it looks no different. He makes observations, a young boy. See water from the well, an older one guarding sheep or whatever. But he also thinks that Matt has to be right because, again, they are north of the Terran. There must be something different from home. When they stop for that night, Lan gives the boys lessons in the weapons that they have. He first has them all show that they can shoot their bow, Matt's bow, which they all do very well. And then he gives Rand some motions and lessons in, like, how to use his sword, and Perrin with his axe. And then this is a quote from the book. "Moving the blade is not enough," Lan said, "though some think it is. The mind is part of it, most of it. Blank your mind, sheep herder. Empty it of hate or fear, of everything. Burn them away. You others, listen to this too. You can use it with the axe or the bow or a spear or your quarterstaff or your bare hand." Rand stared at him. "The flame in the void?" he said wonderingly. "That's what you mean, isn't it? My father taught me about that." Lan doesn't really give him a reply to this. He gives him kind of like a look that Rand can't really read and then moves on. We also learned that in the evenings, Tom entertains with stories and with juggling. Lan will not allow him to play flute or harp because, again, he doesn't want to draw attention, but he's still allowed to, like, tell those stories. So everybody's entertained. On one of the mornings, while they're on their journey, doesn't say which one, after getting up, Gwaynum braids her hair, brushes it out, and then pulls her hood up. Rand asks her what she's doing, and says she's always wanted to braid her hair. Accuses her of unbraiding it now because Moiraine doesn't, and they argue. Aes Sedai don't braid their hair, she said simply. At least not unless they want to. You aren't an Aes Sedai. You're a Gwayn Al'Vir from Eden's Field, and the women's circle would have a fit if they could see you now. Women's circle business is none of yours, Rand al'Thor, and I will be an Aes Sedai just as soon as I reach Tar Valon. He asks her why she wants to be one when she's no dark friend. She pointedly asks him if he really thinks Moiraine is a dark friend, and after everything she's done for Eden's Field and Tam. Rand replies that her actions don't speak for all Aes Sedai. Their argument grows hotter and louder until Lan tells them to cork it. Only then do they realize they've been shouting. Egwene spins away with a meh as Rand looks around and sees the others in the camp watching them. He feels embarrassed to know that he was so loud and that Moiraine heard what he said about Aes Sedai. And he's trying to remember exactly what he said, but it doesn't really matter because he knows she heard, and now he's embarrassed and probably a little guilty feeling. But she announces it's time to leave, and they set off. So, a couple nights later, it's just kind of like Rand and Matt and Perrin sitting around the fire. Tom is there, smoking his pipe, but he's sort of like dozing off a bit. Lan has gone to do his last round of scouting. Moiraine and Egwene have left to have another private talk. They've been doing this every night after dinner, often when the others have gone to sleep. So they're sitting around the fire, and Matt announces that he thinks that they lost the Trollocs for good. And once more, he and Perrin bicker. As Perrin says, if they lost them, how come Lan continues to scout? Matt proclaims that they lost him back at Tarn's Ferry, and goes on to say they should be thinking about the adventure ahead of them and seeing the cities. Rand points out that they're going to Baerlon, and Matt scoffs and begins talking about Caemlyn and Ilion. Just then, they're joined by the return of Moiraine and Egwene from one of their talks, as I mentioned. And the way it's described, it's clear that Moiraine is displeased, you can see by her face. Tom immediately attempts to make excuses for the boys, but she's not having any of it. She ignores him and talks over him. A few days respite, and you are ready to give up? Her calm, level voice contrasted sharply with her eyes. A day or two of quiet, and already you have forgotten Winter Night. We haven't forgotten, Perrin said. It's just still not raising her voice that Aes Sedai treated him as she had the Gleeman. Is that the way you all feel? You are all eager to run off to Ilion and forget about Trollocs and Halfmen and Drakkar. She ran her eyes over them. That stony glint playing across the everyday tone of voice made Rand uneasy. But she gave no one a chance to speak. The Dark One is after you three, one or all. And if I let you go running off wherever you want to go, he will take you. Whatever the Dark One wants, I oppose. So hear this and know it true. Before I let the Dark One have you, I will destroy you myself.
Snap.
Boom!
Period.
I do love that line so much. It's such a good one. So, that's kind of the end of that scene. Moiraine put the literal fear of God into them so badly that even Tom had a hard time falling asleep that night. So the chapter goes on to talk about how each night, as I mentioned, Egwene and Moiraine go off to talk away from the others. And this is a sore spot with Rand. He really hates it, so he decides that he's going to go drop some eaves. And
What a way to put that.
He's gonna drop some what?
Drop some eaves.
That's what I thought you said.
You get the reference, right? I wasn't dropping no eaves, I swear. From Lord of the Rings, Samwise Gamgee.
Oh.
When he's listening to Gandalf and Frodo, and Gandalf busts him. He's dropping Samwise Gamgee. I wasn't dropping no eaves, I swear.
I remember it now. It's been a shamefully long time since I've watched the movies.
Oh, God. I know them almost by heart as much as I know The Labyrinth or Nightmare Before Christmas, so... Especially that first one. Okay, so Rand decides he's gonna go eavesdrop. And he uses his, hunting skills at tracking rabbits to be as quiet as possible and sneak in, through some underbrush and bushes to, listen. And from his hiding place, he hears Moiraine explaining that she's answering a question from Egwene, and that while men are stronger in fire and earth weaves, and women are stronger in water and air, but that one element is not necessarily stronger than another. And this explanation comes from Egwene essentially being upset because she thinks that men are stronger in stronger elements. And Moraine's like, girl, you can wash away earth with water, kind of a thing. And another passage from the book continues this conversation. Egwene was silent for a time, digging her toe into the forest floor. They were the ones who tried to free the Dark One and the Forsaken, weren't they? The male Aes Sedai? She took a deep breath and picked up speed. The women were not part of it. It was the man who went mad and broke the world. You are afraid, Moiraine said grimly. If you had remained in Immen's Field, you would have become wisdom in time. That was Nynaeve's plan, was it not? Or you would have sat the women's circle and managed the affairs of the Eamon's Field while the village council thought it was doing so. But you did the unthinkable. You left in the Two Rivers, seeking adventure. You wanted to do it, and at the same time you are afraid of it. And you are stubbornly refusing to let your fear best you. You would not have asked me how a woman becomes an Aes Sedai otherwise. You would not have thrown custom and convention over the fence otherwise. No, Egwene protested. I'm not afraid. I do want to become a Aes Sedai. Better for you if you were afraid, but I hope you hold on to that conviction. Few women these days have the ability to become initiates, much less have the wish to. Moraine's voice sounded as if she had begun musing to herself. Surely never before two in one village. The old blood is indeed still strong in the Two Rivers. So, This catches Egwene's attention, and she starts questioning Moiraine eagerly about who this other person is, thinking it's one of like her friends or another girl her age. And Moiraine tells her to forget what she said and turns the subject back to the original discussion. And she goes on to tell Egwene, "You want to know that Aes Sedai are good and pure, that it was those wicked men of the legends who caused the breaking of the world, not the women. Well, it was the men, but they were no more wicked than any men. They were insane, not evil. The Aes Sedai you will find in Tar Valon are human, no different from any other women, except for the ability that sets us apart. They are brave and cowardly, strong and weak, kind and cruel, warm-hearted and cold. Becoming an Aes Sedai will not change you from what you are." Here, Egwene admits that she was afraid the power would change her, which, from my point of view at least, was the whole reason she asked the original question about the men being responsible for the breaking of the world. She then pointedly asks Moiraine why the Trollocs had come to Aemond's Field, and at this, Moiraine looks directly at Rand's hiding spot, and he is convinced she knows he's there. Cursing himself for eavesdropping on an Aes Sedai, he tries to sneak away as quietly as he can, and we do not get an answer from Moiraine, by the way. It's from here on out, it's all Rand's point of view, trying to sneak away. He slips back to the camp and to his bedroll, pretending to be asleep with the other men by the time Moiraine comes back to check things out. So, on the 6th day, while Matt is learning to juggle in the saddle from Tom, the group crests a hill and Baerlon is in front of them. Rand observes to himself, quote, "It's bigger than Aemond's Field and Watch Hill and Devon Ride all put together, and maybe Terran Ferry too." Everyone from Aemond's Field is impressed by the sight, but Tom scoffs at Matt's calling it a city. Tom's reaction to that, by the way, makes me think it's kind of more just like a large town.
Yeah.
Moiraine warns all of them that the danger begins again here, and they are not to speak anything of Trollocs, Myrddin, the Dark One, etc. As Lan exchanges his color-changing cloak for a more normal one, she also informs the group that in Baerlon she is Alice, and Lan is to be called Andra. She makes sure they all understand, and then they ride towards the city, wanting to get inside before the gates are closed at sundown. Upon reaching some of the closed gates, Lan tugs on a rope and rings a bell. An old man looks over the wall and yells at them to go to another gate because it's too late to be opening this one. Then he realizes that it's Mistress Alice and says to wait, he'll be right down. And as he's scurrying down the stairs on the other side of the wall, he's still shouting for them to wait. The gatekeeper, Master Owen or Avon?
I don't think it really matters.
Okay, Master Owen it is. Lets them in, apologizing to Mistress Alice. He gives Alice and Andra the news since they've left town, including that White Cloaks, Children of the Light, are in town, but the governor is only letting in about 10 at a time, and they are not happy about it. In this discussion, we learn that White Cloaks dislike Aes Sedai, and they seek out to eradicate Dark Friends. Lan and Moiraine discuss things a little more with him and ask a few more questions. We learn that there was a battle in Ghealdan where some claim that Aes Sedai that went to stop the Dragon Reborn lost. Some, if not all, are dead. He makes a point that while some don't hold with Aes Sedai, who is going to stop men who think they can channel? Which, I mean, is a valid point from, a simple countryman's point of view. We once more hear news that this Dragon Reborn can use the One Power, because remember, Padan Fane gave us that. And that there's thousands following him, and he's moving his armies towards Tyr. Quote, "They say he's named them the people of the dragon. Names mean little," Moiraine said calmly. If anything she had heard disturbed her, she gave no outward sign of it now. "You could call your mule people of the dragon if you wanted." "Not likely, mistress," Avon chuckled. "Not with the White Cloaks around for sure. I don't expect anybody else would look kindly on a name like that, neither. I see what you mean, but oh no, mistress, not my mule. Which I think we should change the name of our podcast to. Not My Mule, a Wheel of Time podcast. Mm-hmm. It's just a picture of like a mule kicking like the symbol of the Dark One or something.
For bonus content.
Yeah. Moiraine says that's a wise decision and it's time to go. He bids them farewell and assures them that this gate hasn't been open in days and he's seen nobody. As they ride, Rand asks Tom what all this about Tyr is, and Tom tells him it's the Corinthian cycle. Rand recognizes that as being the prophecies of the dragon. It's a bit a lot, so I am going to take the quote from Tom. Tyr is the greatest port on the Sea of Storms, and the Stone of Tyr is the fortress that guards it. The stone is said to be the first fortress built after the breaking of the world, and in all this time it has never fallen, though more than one army has tried. One of the prophecies says, the Stone of Tyr will never fall until the people of the dragon come to the stone. Another says the stone will never fall till the sword that cannot be touched is wielded by the dragon's hand. Tom grimaced. The fall of the stone will be one of the major proofs that the dragon has been reborn. May the stone stand till I am dust. Rand asks a couple more questions and ultimately comes to realize that the stone won't fall until the dragon wields the sword, but how can he wield the sword unless the stone has already fallen? Quote, it sounds like a story meant to make people think the dragon will never be reborn. Tom says he asked too many questions and that prophecy that was easily fulfilled isn't worth much. They come to a stop by now next to a high wooden fence, and Lan does some shifty shit to open what is actually the fence gate from the outside when it's only meant to be open from inside. Lan was probably a thief in a past life. They ride through, and Rand sees that they're in a stable yard. 3 stable hands come towards them, attempting to send them off as they're not supposed to enter from that way. Lan just begins to pull out his bride purse, which is what I've started calling it, when a man as large as Master Alvear comes out of the inn and tells his holsters these guests are expected and to care for their horses. As they dismount and collect their things, the innkeeper, Master Finch, cheerfully welcomes Mistress Alice and Master Andra, stating that their conversation has been missed. He leads them inside with promises of the hottest baths in Berlan and welcomes them to the Stag and Lion. And that is the end of chapter 13.
Woo.
Lots of information there.
Yes. So you can see why I had so many quotes in there. Rereading it actually did not take as long as I thought it would. Thank God. But there's a lot to go over. So one of the things I find interesting is the connection of the icon for this chapter, because we're getting more information about the One Power and Saidin and Saidar, and we're not getting big weavings and big magics, but we are getting explanations, and I think that the icon really suits that a lot.
Yeah. I think it makes sense, and it's about not only the Aes Sedai, but about how the Aes Sedai are perceived to exist in the world.
Right.
It's interesting that Rand has this realization, I think in chapter 12, maybe, where he decides that maybe he should just stop thinking he knows anything about people he's never met before.
Right.
Smart for this one time. That's a good idea. You had this one time, but the Aes Sedai don't seem to be part of that.
No, Aes Sedai are not people in Rand's opinion, apparently.
Yeah. Something. I don't know. It is.
There's a connection here from Will's chapter of her being excited and looking so beautiful and so far away, and then all of a sudden she's pulling her hair down. It's no longer in the braid, and that's just another sign that she is no longer the Egwene that he knows.
Especially because it's so important, right?
Especially
because it's so important. That's such an important moment
yep.
for women in Emmons Field, is to be able to braid their hair, and for her to have it for I don't know, a week and a half, and then just get rid of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's barely. It's not even that. It's been a week, because as far as I understand that, how I translate it, She came from her hair braiding ceremony.
Yeah.
That's how I always read it in the
Yeah,
beginning.
that happened the morning of
That
Winter Night.
yes, that morning. So it's barely been a week. And it's absolutely symbolic of her 100% leaving her old life behind.
It reminds me, I did have another thought, I think, from the previous chapter or something like that, where he sort of, where Rand muses about, you see different things in adventure when you seek it out versus having it forced upon you. And I don't know, like it makes that makes sense, but the way that I see it is maybe it's not so much that you see different things as that different things matter to you, right? Like I'm
Possible.
sure that Egwene isn't feeling any pain, right? I'm sure that she's not sore and tired and scared. All of those things are just less important to her. But
Right.
the fact that she's having the adventure that she wants, and now that this path has opened for her to become an Aes Sedai, like that's what matters to her more. Whereas for Rand,
Right.
it's that none of that matters as much as the fact that he didn't want to do this at all.
Right.
I don't know how you know the this trope of the reluctant hero. You know, I don't know exactly where this book, where Randall Thor falls in like the trajectory of that in the preponderance of it in fiction, but it is very compelling. It's one of the most compelling things
Yeah.
to him is that as of right now, and I'll be interested to see how this changes over time, how it develops. But he doesn't want it. He continues
Mm-hmm.
to not want anything to do with any of this. He's doing it because he has to, not because he wants
Mm-hmm.
to. And the
Right.
resentment he feels towards what his own life has become is one of the most interesting things about him.
Right. The difference is that right now Egwene has something to run toward, and Rand
Mhm.
only has
Right.
things to run from. He doesn't have a positive
It's
motivation.
just the fear. Yeah. The fear of the, yeah.
So one thing I noticed, I did not notice this on my first read through, but I noticed it on this read through, is their pseudonyms. Mistress Alice and Master Andra.
Mhm.
Alessandra.
Yeah.
Alexandra.
I immediately noticed that.
So the reason why I caught it, and I'm really surprised I didn't catch it the first time, is because first off, I really like how they spell Alice in this. But as you and our listeners know, my name is Alex, and my only biological niece is named Alice. And it's really funny because I have all the Alex variant AL nicknames. She's only called Alice. And so like they'll shout for her or me through the house, and the other ones I was like, what? But I saw the Alice and I was thinking of me and her, and I was like, Alice, Andra, Alessandra, Alexandra. And I'm like, how did I not catch this the first time? But I think that's kind of funny. I will say I did have a problem with one scene, with Moraine's reaction to one scene. Her reaction to the boys talking about, you think you're safe now, and she chews them all out. And personally, I don't think either Rand or Perrin deserved it. Rand was in neither agreement nor disagreement with Matt. He's like, literally all he said is, we're going to a city, right? And Perrin was in disagreement with Matt. I feel like she should not have torn into all of them like that to the point
uh,
where she.
I mean, there
I
have
just
been
feel
other
like they didn't deserve
comments
it.
about, this won't take long. We're gonna go home soon. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And
but
I think
those.
she feels like she really needs to disabuse them of that notion.
I don't think they truly believe it though. I think they're saying it to comfort themselves.
And I think she thinks that they'd be better off not having that delusion. Like, they need to realize that this isn't going to end anytime soon, and they need to act accordingly.
Like, I feel like they need to have some hope, or it's just going to be worse for everybody. Let them. What is it harming them to let them have some hope of going home sooner than they probably will? I mean, yeah, they're gonna be let down in 2 months when they're still on the fucking run, but up until then, it keeps morale up, and morale for something like this is important.
Mm. It could be that. It could also be, it breeds resentment. That having that expectation. Uh,
Yeah,
it's not going to be that it's not going to be anything permanent. this is just like a temporary thing until the danger is passed. Uh, and then when it's not temporary or they don't get to go home, um, they might, then they might mutiny, for lack of a better word, right?
No,
And
I can understand that.
try to leave, in which case the Dark One would take them. And so then she says, before I let him have you, I'll kill you myself.
Right.
Which another fucking bar. Gotta say,
Oh, such a good line.
gotta say,
Absolute banger.
I will destroy you myself.
right? She's like, because like you said, they're not getting, they're not understanding.
That one right there is borderline. I brought you into this world. I will take you out.
Like, these are the stakes, kids. I need
Right.
you to understand. Yeah.
But again, we don't see, even if that is the case, we don't see Rand making those comments. Matt and Perrin do.
No, that's because Rand is giving all of his energy to pissing me off. That's what he's doing. I have.
Well, he is expressing that sentiment, but directed toward Egwene.
Yeah.
He's upset that Egwene is cutting ties with home. He's acting like she needs to remember her place in Emmons Field rather than wanting to go off and do her own thing.
I think that's more I think that's just him projecting his own fears onto her. I think he misses. We saw from the beginning. He is immediately missing home in Emmonsfield. He did not want to leave in the first place, and her unbraiding her hair and coming along and throwing off the shackles of what is womanhood in Emmonsfield is just one more change that he was clinging to. That custom represented in her, and now she has thrown it off, and it's no longer there for him to cling to. Another pillar has crumbled.
Yeah, it makes
That's
sense.
how I view that.
Yeah, it doesn't make it any less selfish.
I don't. No, it's not.
I think that's what makes me.
It's very selfish, and yeah, he's absolutely projecting onto her, and he's definitely not expressing himself because he doesn't fucking know. He doesn't know what the hell he's feeling. I just think that it was harsher than it needed to be, at least for him and maybe Perrin. I do not believe that Perrin truly believed that he was going home anytime soon. I think it was simply his attempt to keep his own spirits going and to push down his own fears in those moments. So
it's possible. Perrin doesn't say much, which makes it hard to guess of what he's actually
right.
thinking.
And that circles back to what I had mentioned in the previous chapter about how Perrin's quiet, I think, because he's thoughtful and observant. Matt says, "Oh, we lost the Trollocs," and Perrin's like, "If we lost the Trollocs, why is he still out there scouting?" Right? Like Perrin observes that. And they talk about that early on too. Perrin is quiet because he takes the time to think things out before he speaks. And Matt has no fucking filter. And the hamster in Matt's head is running backwards. You know what I mean? On that wheel. So we see very, very opposites with them. And I am not generous enough to say that Rand falls in the middle because he certainly does not. He is much more like Matt than he is like Perrin. But Perrin and Matt are so opposite that we have now in one chapter seen them bicker twice. Mm-hmm. Which is another interesting thing to me. So, I don't know. And they don't know, how long that she had been there during that conversation. So maybe we don't know. Maybe she thinks they were all talking like Matt was.
Well, yeah, especially because right when they notice that she's there, he was saying that Ilian doesn't have eyes and eye.
Right.
And then there she is. Like, y'all could not be any better at this if you tried. How is it that you all wait until she's there to start shit talking what she is?
I will give props to Tom for even the attempt at saving those boys. He put himself potentially in the line of fire and got very lucky that she chose to steamroll over him instead of target on him.
Right.
So, there is that.
Just, I get it, and like I said, the thing about Rand and his reluctance is very compelling about him, but this specifically, him in this chapter, got on my nerves very bad. For how he is about Egwene. Like, how short-sighted.
Rand is super selfish.
how short-sighted and selfish to expect her to give up what is her birthright, right? This,
Right,
the ability to touch the true source and wield the one power, something she was born with. How
right. She doesn't
incredibly
even have to
self-centered,
learn it.
right? How incredibly self-centered of him, even with this, how afraid he is and how much he wishes this weren't his life. How unbelievable of him to expect her to give that up and stay in what he thinks her place should be because he doesn't like it. Don't don't piss me off. Don't piss me
I appreciate that she managed to. She didn't remain. I won't say she remained level headed because she was also shouting, but she provided level headed arguments in the heat of her being heated herself, and I appreciate that.
off. Mm-hmm.
A woman who can think clearly while still losing her temper, especially one who can wield the fucking power, is probably a really good thing, especially in this book. What did you think about the
Well,
prophecies?
I think we've talked before about how sometimes stories are meant to tell you the truth and sometimes they're meant to teach you a lesson.
Uh huh.
And I think that these prophecies about the dragon reborn, are more of the latter than the former. And it's like from the perspective of somebody from Emmonsfield, from the Two Rivers, where everything is like a million billion miles away anyway. I don't know how effective talking about this prophecy would be anyway, especially if you're only using it as like a tale to get kids to go to sleep at night, you know? Like the dragon is like a boogeyman.
Right.
It's interesting. Obviously, I think it's interesting. I'm a sucker for a prophecy, and for people to try to either fulfill or fight destiny. I'm a sucker for that. But the way that this is right now, it's still quite open ended. Is part of what makes the story of dealing with a prophecy, how people deal with it, is what makes it so interesting. Um,
Right.
because you think it means one thing and it turns out it meant another thing the whole time, and you just didn't have the chance to see until you saw. Yeah, I think it's interesting for right now, and I think it's an interesting discussion to have. Whether the point of this prophecy is that the dragon cannot exist again because people cannot conceive or will not choose. They literally choose to find it unthinkable that the dragon could return and that they could face another breaking, since all of that is sort of tied into it.
Right.
It's a apocalyptica, as it were, Book of Revelations type shit. Yeah, and then it's especially interesting because of the existence. Now, I hadn't heard of the Children of the Light before this, so for them to sort of mistrust anyone, it seems, who wields the one power, or just people who aren't specifically aligned with them,
Right.
to then have these prophecies floating around like this, and maybe that's why they're so zealous about their witch hunts. I'm not sure.
We'll wipe that look off your face.
What look? There's no look.
You were in thumbnail and I could still see it. Because I know what you're thinking, because I was thinking the same thing. I find the Children of the Light very, very interesting, and I believe you do see more of them in your chapter, right, Flint? Yeah, they're definitely an interesting group, and Master Alvin, Avon, whatever the fuck his name is, talking about them and talking about how, like, even the governor doesn't want them in the city, right? Only like 10 of them are allowed in at the time, and the rest are off camping, and children are pissed about this. And I did not say it in my chapter, or in my summary, but the reason why they're there is they're claiming an Aes Sedai's in the city, and they're really just causing people trouble, walking around threateningly telling people to walk in the light, which you would think would be a blessing, but coming from them, it is 100% a threat. It's like, and light be with you, and also and also with you. Walk in the light,
Or else.
or else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do get to see a lot more of them. They are absolutely an interesting group. I think you'll have a lot to say on them.
Can't wait. My religious trauma senses are tingling.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Should we warn Flint to take some anti-anxiety before certain chapters?
You gonna give me a trigger warning?
Trigger
Possibly.
warning.
I will say, then talking about the prophecies, right? I'm like, Rand, like this is a sensible conclusion to come to, but weren't you told to watch your fucking mouth?
Right.
Weren't you told to shut the fuck up?
You were told to shut the fuck up.
And here you are, shutting
Ooh,
not the fuck up.
the way these boys can't shut the fuck up. In your chapter coming up,
Yeah,
ooh.
the way that they
Oh!
literally don't stop talking. Hey, bitch, be
One
quiet.
specifically.
Be
That
quiet.
specifically.
Be quiet.
I like early on in my chapter, Rand decides to just zone the fuck out and do basically a walking daydream. Oh god, do I relate to that so hard. That is how I get through most of my fucking days.
That
If
is
I am
literally
not
how I spend my
listening-
existence.
Same. I have never related to a character that pissed me off so well before. And I'm just like, and his daydream is just like, so mine are not normal and mundane, but his absolutely is because he wants a return to the norm, whereas I want out of it. But I want to go on my adventure and fly with dragons and shit. But no, I was born in this universe.
Dang it.
Anyway, motherfucking fucking. I also find it really funny how Lan mother hens Moiraine.
Mhm.
And, like, even she is not safe from getting a scolding if she tries to ride faster.
Hey, chill out.
You are not going to convince me that he was doing it for the horses like he claimed. He was doing it to rest her.
Sure.
Because she is his primary concern.
At all times.
At all times.
I will say I am also very interested in the mechanics of his coin purse. How much money is in there, and can I have some?
Please.
Please.
Daddy
Every time they meet an obstacle, he pulls out more gold. Hey.
I need to know if he has, like, a sack of gold in his saddlebags and he just replens every night.
Yeah. Or is it like a bag of holding? Is it like a portal to the money dimension?
The treasury at Tarvalon.
A portal
reaches
to
in
Scrooge McDuck's vault? Like, what's in there?
Turn it upside down and just pools of it come falling out.
Yeah.
One thing I found really, really interesting, I want to go back to this argument between Rand and Egwene about the hair braiding and her throwing off custom by unbraiding her hair. And her claiming that she is going to be an Aes Sedai. And he's saying that the women's circle would have a fit. And then she turns tables and says, women's circle business is none of yours. She can't have it both ways. She's either an Aes Sedai or she's a member of Eamon's Field and the women's circle and braiding her hair. That's how I look at it. This feels like a having your cake and eating it too situation to me. And I mean, I know I'm being very extreme. A little bit. I'm not trying to be. It just feels like a more gray area to me.
Yeah.
That she can't have it both ways.
It could be that. It seems like, to me, the way that I understood it was that he's trying to like argue according to the rules of where they grew up, so she's using that against him to get him to stop.
Yeah, that's how I took it too.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
If that's the route you want to take, then we can do that. And if that's the route we take, then mind your fucking business, shut the fuck up. Because what happens in the women's circle is not anything to do with you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, that does make more sense. I didn't think about it that way.
That's just what I thought. That's just how it seemed.
No, that makes more sense to me. That because she is not one of those characters otherwise. Like, she's not someone like that otherwise. Right? So that's why it stood out to me like that. And I think I just mistranslated it essentially.
I don't know.
That makes way more sense to me.
Yeah. It is striking that it's about her hair specifically, because hair is so intensely personal, but also public and political. Like, whatever you do with your hair is a statement, right?
Yep.
And we see it all the time. All kinds of debates about how different types of people wear their hair and in what settings and what that communicates about them and all of that, and whether a personal choice about your public presentation can be empowering or restricting, right? Because ideally, for her, like for women, to braid their hair, it's a signification of adulthood, of readiness to join the women's circle, to participate in public life, and then have that sphere of autonomy to themselves, which men can interfere with. But Rand immediately is weaponizing that as a way to sort of restrict her into what he thinks that she should be as a woman from Emond's Field.
Yes.
It's sort of both at the same time, I guess, um, which is it's directly reflected in the choices about, especially women's fashion that we see
Yeah.
all the time. Women's choices and what they
Women's
wear.
fashion have been political for centuries.
It's not ever that
So,
whatever
like, I
women
get
do
it.
is that men can't shut up about it.
Yeah.
You know, whether
Mm-hmm.
they fix their hair, whether
We
they go bald, whether they wear makeup or not,
women
whether they
can
wear
do
long sleeves or
nothing
dresses or
right.
nothing or everything,
We can't do nothing right.
burqa, whatever.
Men.
It's men always have something to fucking say about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because men can't shut the fuck up, as we've seen in this book
I have
in
never met
these
a man that
chapters.
shut up. Love the concept.
And yet, women talk a lot.
It's a lot of very interesting things coming up in that argument that they had.
Yes, there's so much there, and a lot of it can be read in just a ton of ways. I think it's also interesting moving a little beyond that to the discussion between Moiraine and Egwene of her being afraid that the power would change her for the worse in some way, like it could make her insane. Because she definitely points out Moiraine to Rand in their argument, and then right after that, we see her actual fear of maybe not necessarily, obviously, being like evil or a dark friend, but still worrying that the power could change her in a negative way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel there was a connection in that moment to me, I guess, because she does not perceive negativity, anything negative about Moraine's personality, right? But she's worried about her own.
Which I think is natural. You know, it's
Yeah.
again, it's the same thing as like it's one thing to see an Aes Sedai perform like channeling or whatever, like channeling
Right.
power. It's another to have the effect of that leave dampness on your face. You know,
Right.
it's a different thing entirely to put yourself in it.
Yeah.
So I think it's natural
And
for her to
she's
have that fear, even as she defends herself and Aes Sedai from Rand's suspicions, from a superstition.
right, and she's so young. Basically she's barely 18 or thereabouts, and because I believe she's about 2 years younger than the boys, if I remember correctly, right? Well,
Something like that.
yeah. So she's like right there around 17, 18, and as we've mentioned, she is going off on her great adventure. She is seeing her future and something to run towards, but there is still fear there for her.
Which again is I think is about is what's most important to her in all of this. You know, like even with the fear that using the power might change her,
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity to reach out and take that chance is something she's still willing to do because that's more important.
Right. Right.
I have a lot of respect for Egwene
I do too.
right now. I have a lot of respect for her and how she works. What also stuck out to me about that conversation was, you know, how Moiraine kind of immediately clocks that she wants a story with heroes and villains in it, and she wants the women to be the heroes and the men to be the villains. And she says they were insane, not evil.
Right.
I think that's part of if if we don't consider the perpetrators of the tragedy of the breaking as the victims of the tragedy as well as perpetrators, um, that's a kind of a way to sort of get them to for us to
Right.
understand them as being in that position, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really easy to just decide that people are evil, you know,
It is.
Mm-hmm.
even if you know, like because nobody asks a villain what their motivations are. They just see the effect and then decide that that's bad, and then therefore that person is a villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, others not so
Mm-hmm.
much. But it's it's all ultimately a matter of perspective. I think a lot
Right.
about like discussions about like Batman villains, and how essentially they're all
Uh-huh.
just like poor people, or like Doctor Freeze or Harley Quinn. Like it's like these people are deeply broken people, people who are desperate, and the things that they were told are supposed to work for them are not. So they do whatever they have to get what they want, whether
Right.
that makes them bad or like Harley Quinn is insane.
Because she was
Is
manipulated into
right,
it.
is she evil because she's insane, or is that two
Right.
separate things? Right, and it's not that she's
And
insane
then
just because she is, it's she's insane because of what was done to her you know
right. And she breaks that cycle. She comes out of it and she ends up as for a while an anti-hero and then a hero. And she has a full redemption story and a full redemption arc. And motivation is so important because you can your heart can be in the right place. Your motives can be absolutely in the right place. It's just the execution what's wrong, right? Look, if we're going back to Batman villains, look at Ivy, for example. Look at Freeze. He wants to save his wife.
Mhm.
That's all he wants.
But then
I
again,
think
there
about that
is
a lot.
the argument that impact is more important than intent.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Is like the motive can be good, but the execution can be very wrong.
Mm.
Yep.
The road to hell is paved with good intention.
And in this case, the good intention was lose there and sealing the bore.
But the desire for a story that's simple, something I think that we're also dealing with a lot now, outside of the universe of the Wheel of Time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's very tempting to want to find a story with a simple arc, and clear
Yeah.
Right.
villains and clear heroes, and who gets to be the hero and who gets to be the villain, and then what happens because of that, and how they act, how the people who we decide are heroes and villains, how they act, and whether or not that's right.
Black and white hat westerns. That's what that made me think of.
Yep.
Black hats were the villains, white hats were the good guys. Every time, without fail, that's how it worked. Those were simple stories.
Real life is not as simple.
No, it's not.
You know, and even in the story, their lives aren't as simple as that, which is why I think what Moiraine says is really important.
Yeah.
You know, because she's in it, like she's part of the
Yep.
story that she's telling, and so she has that sort of inside perspective.
Right. Shifting subjects here. Something else I found really interesting is why they use the pseudonyms here but not elsewhere.
Yeah, I've never been quite sure why they rolled up into Emmons Field using their real names.
Right.
Hmm.
But they used fake names in Berlon.
Maybe they just considered Emmons Field so backwater and podunk that it doesn't really matter, and news of them isn't really gonna get out.
Right. Possibly.
Or it's if it's like a matter of gaining trust, maybe. Like if they knew, because it would come out eventually. You know, if they had used aliases the whole time they were in Emmons Field, and then used those under those aliases, gotten them to give up their entire lives and run, only to find out that they have been lied to about their names,
Mm,
of all things.
Yeah,
breaking of trust then.
What else would they have lied about?
Right.
yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Alright, should we move on?
Let's do it.
Alright.
Hey, here we fucking go. So, chapter 14 is called The Stag and Lion, and it shows us the dragon's fang above the title once again. This is the third time we've seen it, the first being in chapter 3 and the second in chapter 9. So, the Emmonsfield party has arrived in Bearlawn and entered an inn called the Stag and Lion that is bursting at the seams with activity. The innkeeper, Master Fitch, informs the party of the inn's low vacancy due to workers from the mountains who'd been stuck there all winter, and muses whether there are any people left in the mountains at all, with how many have come to the Stag and Lion. Rand can't help but compare this inn to the Wine Spring Inn, especially how the Alviers could handle the inn's business, apparently, only occasionally needing help from their daughters. Lan goes into the common room, while Rand, Matt, Perrin, and Tom head toward the baths with Moiraine and Egwene. Moiraine asks Master Fitch whether he thinks there's likely to be trouble in Verlon, with the Children of the Light running around trying to make trouble. But Fitch assures her that Governor Adan knows that there are no Aes Sedai in the city. Furthermore, he says nobody wants to see someone hurt for the children's desire for a witch hunt. This is me calling it a witch hunt, not them. Once they arrive at the baths, Rand tries to ask an assistant about the city, but gets no useful answer. Boys begin to bathe, and the scene actually makes me want to take a bath real bad. Cannot lie. While they're soaking, the attendant asks if they need anything else, and Tom dismisses him. Before he leaves, however, the attendant notices their weapons, and asks if there's also trouble where they came from, in the rivers, or whatever you call it, shady boots. Rand turns this question back on, I think it's Ara, who says that he meant the kind of trouble being talked about in Gildan, the Dragon Reborn, Aes Sedai fighting and dying, and so on. Ara mentions that he had heard about Trollocs in Chaldea, and Rand tries to hide his flinch at that, but Matt laughs and tries to tell Ara about their struggles with Trollocs at Emmons Field. However, Tom, Rand, and Perrin all talk over him, trying to provide cover despite Matt's best efforts to blab and run his mouth, until Lan comes in, presumably having heard and finished gathering information in the common room. Lan dismisses Ara, and when he's sure he's gone, turns to Matt and reprimands him. Don't you listen to what you are told, he says, which is what I've been screaming at all of them for the past 5 chapters. Blood and ashes, you had better remember. The Dark One has eyes and ears where you least expect. It may not be what you are used to, but until we get where we are going, keep your trust small, unless Mistress Alice or I tell you different. Despite this warning, the boys continue to try and talk about things they should not be talking about, and Lan gets more frustrated. He brings up that Moiraine wants to get them all to Tar Valon alive, and he will do his best to get them there unless they bring harm to her. Reminded, perhaps, of the stakes of all of this and where Lan's ultimate loyalty is, they bathe and dress in silence. After leaving the baths, they encounter Moiraine, who leads them to a private dining room set aside for them. She's standing with someone who Rand cannot immediately determine as a boy or a girl, since they're dressed in men's clothes, because clothing has gender here, I guess. As Moiraine talks, perhaps to add to the illusion that they're a normal traveling party, she doesn't mention the person who'd been with her. The girl, the book says, it had been, which is an insane way to talk about someone, by the way. Egwene is already in the dining room when the rest of them arrive. Rand, having used the silence after Lan's warning to think about trust, the isolation of being on the road, has decided that no matter what, Egwene was still Egwene, even if she could become an Aes Sedai, and that her ability to touch the true source was not her fault. Duh. Great. Thanks for catching up. He opens his mouth to apologize, but Egwene turns away, shutting him out before he can say anything. Which, it seems like it's been days since the last time that they spoke, which is when they had that fight. So I don't entirely blame her that she doesn't want to listen to whatever he has to say. Master Fitch gets them all inside and seated, apologizing constantly for the quantity and the quality of the food, though Moiraine tells him that it is a feast for all the trouble and worry about food stores brought by the hard winter. Fitch continues to talk of these troubles before seeming to catch himself and leaving them to eat in peace. After he leaves, Lan ensures that he is far away before saying that it is safe to speak. Egwene here asks why stay at the Stag and Lion if he can't even trust the innkeeper. Lan replies that he'll suspect everyone they encounter until Tar Valon, where he'll only suspect half the people they encounter. Before Rand can spiral too much about that, Moiraine explains that Fitch, while a good man, does like to talk, and ears will hear and tongues will wag. After this, they begin to eat, which they do in silence for some time before Moiraine asks Lan what he was able to gather from the common room. Lan replies that there was indeed a battle in Gildon with Loghain, who Rand assumes is the false dragon, having never heard a name attached before. Loghain is determined to be the winner of this battle. No reliable information or even a single answer was forthcoming about the Aes Sedai who went, but he says the news about Baerlon is better. No strange happenings, no fades, no Trollocs. Children of the Light, though trying to stage their hysteria, are still getting no cooperation from the governor, which makes it likely that nobody will notice the Emmons Field party unless they make themselves noticeable. Stares directly at Matt in the camera. Shut up, dude. Moiraine then proposes that they stay in Baerlon for that night and the next, leaving on their second morning in the city. Because the inn is so crowded, there are only 3 rooms for the party of however many. So Egwene and Moiraine take one, Rand, Lan, and Tom another, and Matt and Perrin the third. Tom stays just long enough to take his flute and harp out before leaving, and Lan follows behind. Rand, however, tired and relaxed and full, falls asleep before they even hit the common room, and immediately begins to dream. In this dream, he is in a shadowy stone hallway alone. Though a glow is coming from somewhere, there are no light fixtures on the walls, and the air is dank. Clearly not the Stag and Lion Inn. Although even as he thinks this, he becomes confused. What inn? Rand notices that he is quite thirsty, but he's been able to hear the steady drip of water somewhere, and follows the sound through the hallway, passing pairs of rough doors set at regular intervals along the walls. After a time, he pushes at one of the doors, which opens easily, and finds himself in a chamber with more stone walls. One of these walls opens onto a balcony, beyond which is a sky with clouds streaked in blacks and grays, reds and oranges, streaming past and weaving together in impossible patterns. The chamber itself seems oddly shaped with weird angles and curves. From the hearth, a massive heatless flame comes from a fireplace made of strange oval stones that look like stones head on, but in peripheral like wailing faces full of anguish. In the middle of the room, a perfectly ordinary set of table and chairs, and on one wall, a mirror that shows only a blur where Rand's reflection should be. A man is in front of the fireplace. Perhaps he had been there the whole time. Perhaps he had only appeared when Rand noticed him there. Once more we meet face to face, the man says, before his eyes and mouth become openings into caverns of endless fire for an instant, which is exactly how I feel when I know I have morning breath. It's bad. Rand hurls himself backward out of the room, hitting the door on the opposite wall and knocking it open. Upon looking into the room, however, it is the same room he left, and the man is still there. Rand tries to leave this room through the door he just entered, only to go from that room to that room again. At this point, Rand knows this must be a dream, and wills himself to wake up, remembering that the wisdom had told him this would work. Wisdom? What is a wisdom? Rand tries to leave the room again, but this time the door is locked. The man offers him a goblet full of wine, and Rand lifts it to drink before he notices that smoke is coming from the chair on which the man's fingers rest, and that the man is watching him quite sharply. Rand refuses the wine after all, and demands to know what the man wants, who he is. Some call me Baal-Zaman, the man replies, which sets Rand to attempt another escape. Are you the one? He is asked suddenly, telling Rand that he cannot hide from him, that Baal-Zaman, the Dark One, knows him down to the smallest hair. He asks whether Rand was promised power or glory. But what of such things could there be for a puppet of destiny? Rand's father was chosen, the Dark One says, and his mother little more than a brood mare for their plans. He tells Rand that it will do him little good, if he is in fact who he seems to be, because the Amerlin seat will use him until there is nothing left, just as they used Davian and Urian Stonebow and Ger Amalasan and Rowland Darksbane and Logain. Rand, still confused and unable to hold on to his thoughts, latches onto one thing, and tells the Dark One that he is bound in Shaiol Ghul, along with all the Forsaken, until the end of time. He's mocked for this, and Baal-Zaman calls him a beetle who lives under a rock. Rand tries again to say that he is bound, but the Dark One interrupts him furiously. Fool, I have never been bound. This is, well, directly because all of it is so good. I stood at Lews Therin Kinslayer's shoulder when he did the deed that named him. It was I who told him to kill his wife, and his children, and all his blood, and every living person who loved him or whom he loved. It was I who gave him the moment of sanity to know what he had done. Have you ever heard a man scream his soul away, worm? He could have struck at me then. He could not have won, but he could have tried. Instead, he called down his precious one power upon himself, so much that the earth split open and reared up Dragonmount to mark his tomb. 1,000 years later, I sent the Trollocs ravening south, and for 3 centuries they savaged the world. Those blind fools in Tar Valon said I was beaten in the end, but the Second Covenant, the covenant of the 10 nations, was shattered beyond remaking, and who was left to oppose me then? I whispered in Arthur Hawkwing's ear, and the length and breadth of the land, Aes Sedai, died. I whispered again, and the High King sent his armies across the Aerith Ocean, across the world sea, and sealed 2 dooms. Doom of his dream of one land and one people, and a doom yet to come. At his deathbed, I was there, when his counselors told him that only Aes Sedai could save his life. I spoke, and the High King's last words were to cry that Tar Valon must be destroyed. When men such as these could not stand against me, what chance do you have? A toad crouching beside a forest puddle. You will serve me, or you will dance on Aes Sedai strings until you die. And then you will be mine. The dead belong to me. Rand insists again that this must be a dream, and Baal-Zaman compels him to look at the table, where a rat has replaced the goblet of wine. With a gesture, the rat begins to arch on its hind feet before falling over, bending backward more and more until its spine snaps, and it dies, bent over backward almost upon itself. Though Rand tries to escape, to wake up, it does not. Then go to the Aes Sedai, the Dark One says. Go to the White Tower and tell them. Tell the Amerlin seat of this dream. That is one way to escape them. They will not use you then. No. Not when they know what I know. But will they let you live to spread the tale of what they do? Are you a big enough fool to believe they will? The ashes of many like you are scattered on the slopes of Dragon Mount. Rand says once more, this is a dream. It's a dream, and I'm going to wake up. Balsamon does the same gesture he'd done toward the rat, and Rand's whole body begins to contort backward, just as the rat had done. Will you ever wake again? Rand jerks awake, in his bed, in the Stag and Lion, the moon in the sky, and Tom and Lan both sleeping. Shaking, his head hurt, Rand contemplates asking Moiraine for help. After all, she told him she could help with nightmares. Though he isn't sure whether this dream, in which he was facing death, was bad enough, he also isn't sure whether anything he could do would get him in deeper to the Aes Sedai than he already was. Having left his home and come all the way to Berlon, was there anything else he could do than trust her? In the end, he lays back down, foregoing the possibility of her assistance. The chapter ends with him waiting for sleep that would take a long time to return. Good God. Good God.
Intense. So can Matt just not shut the fuck up or what?
Literally, dude. And the way that he was like, what are you guys talking about? No, I'm talking, shut up, dude.
100% clueless. Cannot take a hint.
Like, the definition of loving the sound of your own voice. Like,
He really is.
he just wants to yap.
Which, like, I get. But, like, dude,
Because let me tell you about Trollocs. That makes him sound cool and important.
Right.
In his opinion.
Meanwhile, not 5 minutes ago, you were fucking told.
as though literally all that they haven't been told since coming into Berlon is to shut the fuck up.
All they've been told. That's it. All they've been told. That's all they have to fucking do. And Matt can't do it.
Like, you've been told that rats can be ears for the Dark One.
Right.
Rats,
Like,
ravens.
You're not safe even when you're alone. Shut up.
And Lan throws a bucket. And I was like, I have never understood a character like I have this now.
He is over it.
God damn
He
it.
is done. Leave it to Matt.
Shut up, dude.
Matt is such a frustrating character. Please stop, Matt. Just stop.
That Balsamon dream, though. Like, ooh,
Gnarly.
Right?
Gnarly.
he's scaled.
Like, if he hadn't woken up, I do feel like he probably would have died.
Probably.
Like, he was, like the rat, insane. Absolutely insane. Also, poor rat. How dare you?
I know.
How
You
dare
know, I need to point out, because I work with rats, I had brought that book with me to work and was reading that scene while I was working. And I just looked at my little rat dudes running on their treadmill, chilling, doing their thing. And I just couldn't be me. I hate it. I hate it so much. And it's even harder now to reread that and remember. It's like, my poor rat baby. They're smarter than to follow the Dark One. Than to work for them.
Definitely. Not your rats.
All rats. Rats are just smarter in general. But that's a different subject.
I think it was very funny that the first thing that Rand thinks upon seeing Balsamon is that he supposes that women would have found him good looking. Very funny. Very funny to me. Sir, why? What? Why this?
Okay. Like,
He's hot? How
I'm just gonna go ahead and say this now. That drives me insane. Robert Jordan says this phrase all the time. He supposed women might find him attractive. Just say he's hot.
Yeah. Now,
Right.
because all
You
this is
don't
doing is
gotta
giving
no
me,
homo it every time.
right. All this is doing is giving me fuel for my headcanon that Rand is queer. It's not. Like, you're not. It's what am I supposed
You're
to think?
not helping
What am I supposed to think?
against the argument.
You see a man you've never seen before, one who seems really menacing, and he just fucking appeared out of nowhere, and the first thought is that he's hey. Girl. Okay. So okay. So now
But to women, not me, definitely not me.
Right.
I don't think that.
right,
I don't
only,
think
only
that.
women. Only women.
Yeah.
Okay. Or people with eyes, perhaps. Like what are
Yeah.
what are we doing? What are we doing here? Rand, it's okay. It's okay, honey.
It'll be okay.
That is a thing that has always bothered me. Like, I am as gay as the day is long, and I can tell you when a woman is hot.
Yeah.
Like, chill.
Right. Yeah. I am fully gay. Right. I'm a fully gay individual. And I'm like, every time I see Megan the Stallion, I'm like, good God, where
Ooh.
did they make her? Where did she come from? Yeah. So yeah, like there's
Like,
like objective truth, and it can be
yeah.
okay to do that. You don't have to know homo it, like you said. Like it's it's fine. It's fine.
It's okay.
But I guess that's what we get for reading a series that's 35 years old. Whoops.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was also funny how it's like he didn't seem to be there until Rand looked at him, like Schrodinger's dude. What the fuck? Hey, what?
Dream logic.
Mm-hmm.
Opening the door to the same fucking room you're already standing in.
Yeah, terrifying, by the way. Absolutely
That was actually scarier to me.
Yeah, I hate
That's
that.
that's
I
more
hate that.
mindfucky to me than anything
Yeah,
else.
that is actually my night.
In
That
that
is actually a night.
in that
Yeah, when I'm stuck in a place and I can't get out. Yeah,
Ugh.
yep, terrifying.
Yeah,
Yep.
those are some of the worst stress dreams to me.
I don't have them, thank God, but you don't want to know what mine do consist of, so.
Yeah, I mean, mine aren't specifically like that, but they're close enough that I get it.
Mm.
It's like the same genre.
Yeah. Just a different flavor.
Yeah.
I find it another interesting point that is made by Lan. Lan makes really good points all the time. Is that when he points out to the kids, the boys, that the attendant didn't talk to them because the attendant didn't know what he could say.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So like even the people who live and work there can't trust everybody. It goes back to that point that he made of I know it's not what you're used to, but trust no one.
Everybody talks. Is
Yep.
everybody blabs? Everybody's listening.
And like
Exactly.
that's just about white cloak shit.
It is. It is giving constant vigilance a little bit. I could not help but think, because that's ran that into my DNA for better or for worse.
Yep.
And I did, like I mentioned that Rand starts to spiral a little bit when Lana's like, when we get to where we're going, I'll trust half of the people there. And he's like, is anywhere safe? I was like, oh, honey.
Oh, baby.
Oh, babe. I know.
Oh, sweetheart. No.
He starts to spiral about it a little bit. I'm like, yeah, that way lies paranoia. I know. I know. It's gotta do your best.
I have
Poor
jokes
thing.
that I want to make and I can't because they're spoilers.
Hold on.
I'll have to
for
make
now.
them to. I'll have to make them to Will.
You and Will
private chat.
a side episode where all you do is
Right.
about jokes and things that you have thought of while we're doing this, but couldn't say because it would spoil things for me. Especially because when I'm looking at my notes, I'm not looking at you, so I can't tell when your face has changed.
Oh,
So, you know,
I've been trying very, very hard to keep my face schooled. It doesn't always work, but I've been trying because my face will give it away.
I am reining in my impulse to ask questions all the time.
For me, it depends on how much I'm getting lost in my thoughts as to how much I can keep my poker face.
Well, like, me pointed it out to you earlier. That look was you getting excited and giddy. And I could, like I said, I could tell in thumbnail form. So, and you're usually better at it than I am about keeping your face schooled. So, I'm just worried that like someday Flint's gonna say something and I am not gonna be able to stop myself, and it's just gonna be a dead giveaway because of it.
I will say,
I need to put on my customer service face.
I will say, I think the last episode, I think Will mentioned Dragonmount, and it hadn't been called that yet. So,
Well, I mean, if you're looking at the maps, it's on the maps.
which I wasn't, but it
No,
is.
I think they do call it Dragon Mount before that, though, don't they?
It has to have been called Dragonmount.
I swear.
Maybe. I don't think
You
it
know
was.
what?
Feel free to look. I might be remembering wrong.
Either way, I had said that word before when I said the website I was looking up the chapter icons on.
which I had no
So.
context for. It's just, that's part of the fun and also the risk of a podcast in this format, I think. And it's not like, I know that you would
Speaking,
never intentionally try to spoil anything for me. It just kind of is what it is, and there's not really any way that you can control the connections that I make
I
or the
fucking
guesses that I
didn't.
have. So it just kind of is what it is. I'd appreciate all efforts to not do it, but if it happens, I will do my best to act like I did.
Will, I accidentally spoiled a little bit of your chapter last week. And we were waiting for you. It wasn't anything like super crazy, but I was talking about how I thought that Egwene first touches the one power in Flint's chapter.
Oh, I don't remember that.
And it's not until your chapter for this week that she does it. Because I thought they got across. I was blending my chapters too close together, and I thought they got across and into the hiding hole before the chapter ended. So,
see, this
I
is
spoiled
why
that
I don't
a
remember
little
that
this
at
is
all.
why you rereading ahead is dangerous.
But I always go back and reread our 3 chapters for the week again.
Yeah.
And it was still blending over.
Yeah. I don't remember that at all. So that's also a point in our favor, I think, is that I don't tend to remember things unless I'm looking directly at it. Then I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. So you could
Okay.
probably like say something like a throwaway remark, and I wouldn't register it, and then until you brought it up like 3 weeks later, and then I would be like, oh, I guess that did happen.
Because it was when we were joking about how short our chapters were, and
Oh,
you were like, they ride and they stop. I go, yeah, they ride, they stop, Egwene touches the power, that's it. That's how I said
oh
it.
yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
I
And will reading ahead or not is not going to stop me from blending my fucking chapters together. I'm going to do it no matter what.
listen. I'm just stupid.
Sometimes the blonde actually is real. Like, actually, it's probably the lack of sleep, but
That's probably that
T.
lack of sleep will do a real number on you.
I think that affects all 3 of us quite frequently.
Sleep deprivation, my best friend.
same.
Love that
Bro,
hoe. That's why we
same.
hang
And
out every single night. Yep.
that's kind of been the tea for us
Yeah.
our whole lives.
Yeah. I love waiting for sleep and that never comes. That's so fun.
Much of my teenage years were spent in all-nighters talking with Will on
Yeah, we're secretly on AIM at 3 o'clock in the morning on a school
I
night.
I mean, it wasn't secretly for me. My parents, once I had a computer in my room, my parents didn't give a shit.
It was definitely
So, they
secret
were
for
like,
me.
because I was getting myself up and getting ready. They're like, if you can't get up and get ready for school, that's on you. So I learned to regulate pretty well for that. But in the summertime, oh yeah, almost every night.
Yeah.
That's my mom.
But now, like, so I made this joke to my husband yesterday. For those who are listening, my husband's name is Jay. Our middle cat, Leia, is the only one that doesn't get kennelled at night. Yes, my cats get kennelled at night because they're monsters. They are trained, they get treats, they love it. But Leia's the only one who doesn't because she's the only one who's a good girl. And when I'm laying in bed, she comes up, she cuddles with me, she lays on my chest, and she gets down. And we keep a baby gate up in the doorway to keep the dog in the bedroom at night. And the only reason we do that is because we don't want him tripping my mother-in-law in the dark, which he will do. So Leia's thing is she gets up and she leaves and she hops back and forth over the gate, like multiple times a night before I go to sleep. I made this joke to Jay last night that in this house we don't count sheep, we count Leia hops.
There she goes again.
Yeah, and I'm literally like, I could lay on my side and watch her do that and probably fall asleep. And it would probably still work better than my medication. Sleep deprived and highly caffeinated. My life story.
Right, so going back to mentioning maps,
Yes.
since you two are using ebooks and they don't really show very well on those, we do get a little bonus map right at the end of this chapter we just covered. I'm gonna send that in the group
You
chat.
should see how it looks in my ebook.
Oh, it's jank as hell in mine.
It's so terrible in mine.
That's fun.
But it's just like a little zoomed in section of the map. You can see Tarvalon up there at the top with Dragonmount there. Is anything else relevant to where we've been so far?
I don't think so.
Not really.
You see, it's been mentioned by Matt. You can see Camelin down at the bottom there, but I think that's about it as far as like this part goes. I was wondering what the hell that image was in my freaking ebook.
I don't have that.
I thought it was like
it gets so distorted for
I
some reason.
thought it was a janky page that like didn't belong there. I had no idea. I'm like, now the map in the front looks like this. What the hell is this? So our next chapter, I think, is going to be a good one for some edumacation.
Yep. We've got things coming still.
Things and stuff. So our next chapters then are chapters 15, 16, 17?
Yep.
Right.
And if all goes according to plan, that episode should be the first one we record after launching.
Ooh.
Yay.
Fun.
So hopefully we will have heard from some listeners by that point.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my god, it's real.
Or it's about to be.
It's not just us doing a video chat.
I think that if we hear from listeners, Will, because you're running all of the socials and stuff, right?
I mean, we've all got the login.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ain't logging into shit, and we all know that. If Flint doesn't check the actual socials, though, you should present some stuff on the show so we can get like live reactions from Flint. Because I think that would. I need Flint freakouts. Oh my god, it's real. People know who I am.
Please no. Please, oh my god. Oh my god, that's my worst nightmare. Oh my god, don't perceive me.
Don't perceive me? Is that what you said?
I said don't perceive me. No.
You're about to be famous in a niche
very
community.
Niche community.
No. Stop.
Of some of the best people I've ever known on and offline.
I know. A niche community of 70. No, I'm kidding. But like, can you imagine?
Right?
You just walk into a con with 70 people. That's all there is in this fandom, and everyone's like freaking out.
But see, the thing is that 70 people is so many people. Actually, it's like if 70 people were in your house right now. That's a lot of people.
Wait till...
Bitch, I can't fit 15 people in my house. I live in a shitty apartment.
Exactly.
Wait till I can get y'all to WatCon.
I can't wait.
Love to.
And that'll be like 200 people who know who you are.
No.
And that's the
Never
small
mind.
convention.
Never mind.
And that's the small convention.
Never
That
mind.
was actually kind of what I was getting at, Will, was like the WatCon size, but I had no idea what the scale was. So
yeah,
I changed my 70 to 200.
I think last year was the biggest one, and I think we were like a little over 300. Yeah, I mean, that's
okay,
right
Flint,
here in
I will
Columbus,
hold your hand
so...
the whole time if you need. I will keep people away from you. I'm good at that.
Because they're going to see how intensely asocial I am. They're going to be like, hey, and I'm
just
like,
standing,
what?
Flint just will for once being the social fucking butterfly instead of me. And then
I mean, if
me
only
just
because I've
standing there
known
as
these
Flint's
people
body-
for years now.
Right, exactly, is my point. And then me just standing there as Flint's bodyguard. No, I'm sorry. Flint can't talk right now. I'm happy to chat with you, but Flint is on break.
It's a little much. It's a little much. They'd be like, hey, Flint. I'd be like, who the fuck are you?
How do you know my name?
Yeah. It literally happens to me when people read my name tag at work. Okay? And they're like, thanks, Flint. I'm like, what?
I once had a coworker who, it was not her legal name, but she went by the name Winter, and that was on her tag at the store I worked at, that I shall not name, but it is a very popular novelty shop that sells music stuff and adult stuff. Hint, hint. But we had corporate come in one time, like not just my district manager, like the regional and like 2 other bigwigs. And she'd been working there for like 6 months. My DM did not give a crap. She never questioned it. One of the bigwigs questioned if that was like her legal name, and when they found out it wasn't, they made her change her tag to her legal name.
Disgusting.
That's so dumb.
Rude, right? We all thought it was stupid. Me and my manager let her put on her other one when they left.
At that store? Like...
Yeah! At that store.
The store that sells dildos and lava lamps next to each other?
The same... You know what? I might end the next couple of episodes with just some hilarious stories from my time at that store. Just close out the episodes.
Until you said it, it's been so long, I forgot you worked there.
I haven't worked in retail in over 10 years.
That's wild to think about.
Thank fuck. Because I don't count my time at publishing at my university. Technically, that was retail, but that was more of an office job.
Yeah.
I did still have to work with customers. I had to work with the professors, and we printed for people who wanted to publish their own books and stuff like that. So we did a lot. There was still customer service involved, but it was not fucking retail, and it was not goddamn food service. Who I have said before, and I've said many times, food service people are a whole different breed, and they deserve a lot more accolades.
Yes, I do.
They deserve a shit ton more accolades than they get, because they put up with even worse shit than like people in standard customer service, in my opinion.
I think that
I've worked at 5 or 6 different mall stores, plus 2 big box stores. I could not do what people like will do.
I think that food service employees should be able to commit war crimes.
I agree.
I think that when they sign their contract should exclude them from the Geneva Convention.
And also give us health insurance.
Of course. Naturally.
Because that never fucking happens.
Right.
No. Alright, well, I think that's it for this episode.
Yeah, we're clocking it at only, 2.5 hours.
Tune in next time for chapters, 15, 16, 17, and maybe a story from one time. A really good story from my previous show.
Maybe just maybe.
Alrighty, thank you for listening.
Until next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Easing the Badger. To continue reading along with us every other Tuesday, please make sure you subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you find podcasts. Make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and a review where possible. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at EasingBadgerPod, or send us an email at easingthebadgerpod@gmail.com. Our link tree will be in the show notes. Theme music is Magic Tavern by Alexander Nakarada.